Holland's return this season has started off with back-to-back wins at two very difficult circuits. But this season's challenges are numerous and the cavalcade of tough tracks is unrelenting. Lime Rock Park is seen as the road course version of a short track bull ring, so space will be limited, action will be frantic, and typically a little bit of chaos throws a spanner in the works. Will Holland be able to overcome all of that and make it a three-peat? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 3 of the PRL Formula 3 series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Wei-Han Chan. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beer. Lime Rock's unforgiving confines have gotten a makeover recently here in iRacing. To get a better look at it, why don't we head on down to our track guide. Welcome to Lime Rock Park. Located in the northwest corner of Connecticut, this unassuming little track has garnered a surprisingly passionate following. Its unique aspects create a circuit not only full of character, but consistently challenging even to modern race cars. While it has 4 different possible layouts, on the classic version, only 7 corners are split along a 1.5 mile track with just a single one of them turning left. Though simple in appearance, most drivers will tell you that trying to be fast here is anything but. The run down the front stretch into Big Bend offers pretty much the only viable passing spot, but it's a double apex right-hander which lures drivers into taking it too fast. The uphill is also scary quick considering its lack of runoff and can sometimes cause cars to get airborne over its crest. Then, on the opposite end, the downhill sends cars diving into a quick sweeper which requires a good exit speed in order to defend or attack back into the first corner. Modern racing mostly uses the more recently built chicanes, especially at the uphill. But one of the most unusual facts about this track is that the races are never held on Sunday. Due to a legal agreement with a nearby church, events must take place on Fridays and Saturdays. The confines around this place are tight, the passing opportunities are few, and mistakes are usually punished with race-ending damage. With most other road courses now being built with upwards of 3 and 4 miles in length, this track stands out. But in an age of multi-million-dollar facilities and flashy buildings, this quaint small circuit manages to keep fans coming back with its intimate and grassroots setting. You see, not much to this track really, Wei-Han, but it certainly keeps drivers on their toes. It feels like over the years, everybody finds this place challenging.
Yeah, very much so. This is very much an old school racetrack that we all know and love on the iRacing service. The one place that is so familiar with our rookie racing experiences. So we've got, in fact, all of the corners are right-handers except one. Now this track measures 2.5 kilometers long or 1.5 miles, and because of its length, it'll be all about rinsing and repeating, building a consistent rhythm over the laps, as drivers will use multiple laps just to set themselves up for one overtake move as they draw themselves closer and closer to the cars in front, and also try their best not to be dropped. There'll be 2 corners in particular with elevation changes, the uphill and the downhill. These are the corners that might unsettle the car a little bit as drivers go flat out through those. And the downhill corner is also where overtaking staging moves usually happen. Now expect high speed action as well as a lot of lap traffic due to the track's length and unlimited slipstreaming, where these aero reliant cars use all the tow they can get to gain an additional advantage over one another.
And they'll need any advantage they can get to get those passes done. It's going to be tough. But before we get to the racing itself, let's remind you of our sponsor, NinjaTrader. Ready to compete against the financial markets? Supporting over 60,000 users across the globe, NinjaTrader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. NinjaTrader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit ninjatrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance. This race is also brought to you by ButtKicker. Today's broadcast is proudly sponsored by them because ButtKicker products add an incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Check them out at thebuttkicker.com. Now, taking a look at the championship first, we are 2 rounds in. As we mentioned, with this being round 3, David Holland has won both of them. As you'd expect, he's got a decent gap over Greg Seitz, though not huge. Really, it's close between Seitz and Cuerto, though. We saw Mauricio have an up and down race a little bit in Montreal last week. tied for fourth and fifth between David Soroy and Samuel Hermer. One of them is going to have to come out ahead today unless we have a weird situation with bonus points. We have a teams championship that takes place in this series as well. So, Weihan, why don't you run us down that?
So in the team standings, Vantage Azuro leads the standings with 124 points. Of course, Rust Iron Racing is just so close behind with only 4 points behind. We've also got Lava Motorsport in third, 24 points behind the team standings leader at 100 points. And also Punto CL Racing and Rust Racing Steel, both tied at fourth position.
Now, if you've never watched this series before, well, welcome for one thing. This is going to be an exciting one. We are in round 3, as we mentioned, out of a 10-round season. And they do have a drop week in those points, so they can have a bad race, but they can't use that drop week in the final round. It's a 45-minute race in this series, so it's a sprint format, essentially, for what you see in this sort of level of Formula 3 cars. It is also open setup in them, so there's and get some speed out of it and get comfortable in the car. Now, I know it says they have a drive-through at 11 incidents. That is actually a stop-and-go penalty that they will experience at 11 incidents, and they will be disqualified at 20, which means they will literally be removed from the track. They'll disappear in a poof and be gone. There's bonus points down at the bottom they can get. I was mentioning those earlier. They can come into play in the championship if we get a close one, but Holland has made sure we have not had a close championship in a while, as he has certainly been difficult to catch. You're watching this once again on the iRacing Esports Network. Make sure and subscribe to the channel. Very easy to do so. If you're over on YouTube watching right now, just scroll below the video. If you see a big red button that says subscribe, click it, and you won't miss a moment here on IESN. Moments like that big off track that we saw there for one of our qualifiers on screen. I'm kind of surprised they did not bin it there. Now, in that qualifying, Greg Seitz actually has the pole, and it's 2/10 over David Holland. I was kind of wondering if this was going to be a thing in this qualifying, Weihan, that the track is so short and the laps happen so quick. It seems like the small gaps and small gains will make a difference in a lot of positions out here.
Yeah, look, simply because the length of the circuit is small, you notice that the difference in lap time between drivers will be so much smaller. So, usually where drivers might be separated by tenths or hundreds of a second, over here it's all down to thousandths of a second.
In fact, it's 9/1000ths between Holland and Green, who's on the inside of row 2 right now. Holland down in fourth. Unfortunately, Seitz has impressively 0.17 over Sam Hermer, who certainly had a good time getting a second place at Montreal before. Thankfully, looks like everybody's doing a pretty good job of finding some space out on track. I'm not really seeing too many people getting caught up amongst one another here in the qualifying. So I think we're watching. Is this Holland heading around? No, this is Green that we've got on screen. You see he comes around the left-hander. Who else have we got that we need to see climb up the order? David Soroy. Remember, we saw him within the top 5 in the points. Well, he's only 8th right now in the qualifying, and he's had a lot of laps in already. In fact, I'm seeing at least 10 of them have been counted with 6.5 minutes left to go. So it's not been for lack of trying for the number 19. Whatever the case, this car does not seem to have qualifying pace today. Of course, we got David Holland as well following. So let's see what Soroy's got, and then we'll switch over to David. Well, the other David, I should say. And Soroy's going to abandon it, so he doesn't like that lap. He comes to a halt. This is Holland, and the number 18, that one doesn't go quicker. 43.3 is about 0.4 slower than his best time. Now, what about the weather? We've seen with this new tire model that the weather isn't as effective about changing the car's handling way on, but it still seems to at least affect it some.
We do in fact have track temperatures of 28 Celsius, which is 2 Fahrenheit. So I think it is the ideal, the kind of a sweet spot temperature, which should not go too hard on the tire wear, and should also go in the favor of drivers who want to kind of conserve their tires and and kind of remain consistent over the laps. We've not got too much of a wind, 3 kilometers per hour southwesterly wind. So it should not, in fact, do any harm to these aero reliant cars. 61% humidity. So I think we should all be on for quite a good race tonight.
Certainly looking forward to it as we watch Greg Seitz cross the line. Did not improve that time through. What about Daniel Cranefoos? We haven't talked about him yet. He's sitting in fifth, and he's coming across as well. 42.938 is his quickest. Looks like maybe that was a slow lap for him. That was a 47.5, so that's way off pace. Maybe just trying to get himself some clear track. Brett Thurman as well. And here comes Hermer. Let's see. This is in second place. Remember, we watched him trying to improve. And, well, he's not got it this time. Let's stay with him, though, because I think he was backing it up on the front stretch last lap. I think he was in a little bit of traffic. Now he has some in front of him. That's Alex Gaillon in the 808 machine in front of him. He might be far enough ahead. Is this a big enough gap here, Weihan, that the aero wake shouldn't disrupt him?
Yeah, well, look, I think when you're close enough, you do get the advantage. But at this point, I think it should not bring any benefit. Oh,
What happened
yeah, that's
there?
better. He's hit a little bit of an object at that point. If we have a look at a little bit of a replay,
Can we? Because he went under the bridge at that moment, so I couldn't quite see from my eye in the sky view. The car just looked like it. What did he hit? Absolutely bizarre. I wonder if this is a landmine or something, just a glitch in the game that iRacing hasn't caught. Oh, you know what? That was a car disappearing. That was some sort of netcode then. So that's what that happened. That was very bizarre. Okay, so now that the mystery has been solved, let's
Right.
focus on the qualifying once again. 3 minutes left to go, so chance is running out here, Weihan.
Yeah, well, look, the thing is, as these laps are short, I think the drivers would still be able to kind of squeeze a fourth qualifying lap down if they manage to keep all their laps clean and consistent. So we do observe that the top 5 at least, or rather the top 10, their lap times are all separated by 2 to 3 tenths of a second. We have a look at Mauricio. He is currently sitting in 8th.
Holland now crossing the line, but not quick enough. Boy, it is getting very, very tight between second and all the way down to what looks like, I'd say 11th place. There is only 2 tenths between those 8 cars, 8 or 9 cars. Stephen Verity sitting up in 6th, not able to improve. By the way, Mitchell Green, rather, I should say, has jumped himself up into 2nd recently. So that has pushed Hermer down, who is not back out on track. So unless he really gets out right now, he probably is not going to be able to get a quick one in and get those tires up to temperature. Let's continue to watch Verity work his way up over the hump on the uphill. And now this is what the other one you're talking about with that elevation change through diving turn. Nice and clean there for the New Yorker. He's got to beat a 42.9 to get himself any higher up. And that's a 43.7, so that won't do it.
Yeah, I suppose one thing that drivers will have to contend with throughout this race is the kind of the lack of mental breaks when it comes to not just corners but also lap traffic. So it's something that drivers will have to be as they remain on their toes all race long.
Sheldon Rosenbaum down in 15th. Now, have we seen Rosenbaum compete much in the PRL? Because I know we've seen him in the Autobahn series pretty often, but this might be the first I recall seeing him over here. Alex Gaillon now over the line, and again, still no improvement there. For our battle for the pole, Seitz, Green, Cranefoos, Verity, all still out there, and those are among our top 6, but we're down to 30 seconds left. So if you haven't started a lap, you better start one soon. Cranefoos across the line. That's not going to do it. And he's going to abandon this last lap. He's just pulling off, and Sheldon Rosenbaum. Ooh, that is quicker for him. That's up to 15th with the 43.1. Looks like Seitz has also finished up his qualifying. Guyon's going to be able to start one more lap, although it looks like he's being held up slightly. Verity is not going to get across the line, and he does not improve either. Green comes down. He's in second. Can he snatch the pole away? He's got a bit of time to make up, and the answer is no. He's not going to do it. Here's Soroy across the line. No improvement for him. Bunch of drivers diving into pit lane, not happy with this last lap. David A. Bear, who is down in 29th. In fact, the last driver with a time on our scoreboard currently. Let's see what the number 16 has got. He's going to give it one more shot. He's got a 45 flat for his quickest, and a 45.4 will not do it. Soroy, I think he did not cross the line in time, but he's going to abandon it. Yep, he is done for the day because he's coming into pit lane. That will be our qualifying. Let's go through that starting order for today with Greg Seitz on the pole, Mitchell Green starting in second place. Then on the inside of row 2, it's Sam Hermer, followed by Daniel Kranefuss in fourth. David Holland all the way down in P5. Qualifying's important here. He might regret that in the end. Stephen Verity starts P6 with Lucas Basagalupo in seventh. Mauricio Puerto also surprisingly far down, starting in eighth, along with David Soroy in P9. And David McDonald will round out your top 10.
Beginning from 11, and Olivier Legault begins from P12. In fact, 3 thousandths of a second separating P11 and 12. This is how close timings are at Limebrook Park. Sheldon Rosenbaum begins from 13th, and Raymond Lewis from 14th. Joshua Daniels 15th, Lawrence Sebastian in 16th. Christopher Richards and Brett Thurman from 17th and 18th. Alex Guyon and Tyler Dezube from 19th and 20th.
21st is Eduardo Gach with Sebastian Brew starting 22nd today. Then you've got Lionel Duprat in the 23rd position. Owen McLaughlin, P24 for him. Then you've got David Blackwood in the 25th. After that, we've got Tyler Gord, who is outside, and Matthew Gunderson in 27th. Last 2 drivers to put a time in are Daniel Barnett in 28th and David A. Bear in 29th. Honik, Lee, Santana, and Palovich did not put times in. I do not see Santana in the session right now, but the other 3 should start. So it looks like we'll have 32 cars that will take to the grid today. Standing start for this series. We had a bit of a weird one last time where they had a rolling start for the first time. So it looks like they got that correct this time around. The question is, will it be a messy start to this race? These cars have the new damage model, and hopefully we won't see too many parts flying around in this tightly packed little circuit. As the clock ticks down, and I believe the time should be up pretty soon here. Indeed, here we go. Lights are up, engines are revving. Green flag is out, off the line. It is a decent start there for our pole sitter. Seitz already covering off green, but side by side for third. That's David Holland working to try and overtake Kranefuss. Kranefuss has the inside as they come into the left-hander, and it's not going to quite work out. He's covered off. So Holland already up into P3.
A brilliant start by the drivers, already going into single file as they come towards the uphill corner. Note that they're not using the chicane, so this will play to their benefit as they try to bring their momentum throughout the rest of the circuit. Already we've come to the west bend, the midpoint of the circuit, and towards the end here as they come down towards the downhill corner. Greg Seitz, your current race leader at the end of lap 1, and we've got Mitchell Green, and someone's got out behind into the pit entrance. A huge impact there.
That's Rod Clenard, who unfortunately had that one. Thankfully did not fly into the traffic. So let's take a look at the replay and see exactly what caused this. Did he get help, or did he just spin himself off here? That angle looked like he just dipped his wheels into the dirt. This should give us
So right on what we just observed him having his outside tires on the grass, and that was just enough to unsettle his car and into that tire barrier.
It was a spectacular wreck. Now we watch Cuerdo weaving down the front stretch, trying to stay within the slipstream of the leaders, which has Greg Seitz up at the points, but Mitchell Green with a train following him. That's Holland, Cranefoos, Bacigalupo, and then Cuerdo at the back of it in 6th position.
So we do have a battle for first place. In fact, almost a six-way freight train of battling at this point. Of course, the gap that Seitz has ahead of Green is 1 whole second, so there has to be a little bit of work done by Green in order to close that gap out over the next few laps. Some drivers going defensive there. That is Holland taking the inside line, and I think Cranefoos going along the outside, and he tries to make a move work down turn 1.
Around the outside of Big Ben doesn't quite pay dividends. And I think we had an incident with Blackwood. Oh, and another one happening. Thurman, I believe. Owen McLaughlin. Yeah, there's a few cars involved. Raymond Day. Oh, and a big wreck evolving from that. That's Sebastian, and Daniel Barnett was the one that just plowed into things. This starts with, is it Sebastian? Yeah, we're watching Lauren Sebastian. So there's going to be a car spinning in front of him. That's Raymond Day. They both spin simultaneously. And wow, so 3 completely separate incidents, because Barnett just goes wide. That was Barnett that hit him, that we saw just plowing into things. I think he just loses it, Wei-Han. I mean, what do you think?
I think if the Big Ben being a decreasing radius corner, it is a little bit hard to kind of judge a corner entry at some points, and I think he just managed to fail to get the right line in and dip the grass and kind of snowballed into the outside and into that car there.
I'm glad that we're racing virtual cars, because that would have been a massive, massive accident. Meanwhile, we're riding on board with Daniel, still chasing David Holland, as that number 55 wasn't able to make it happen before. He's got to be careful, though, because Wei-Han, I think if he does try and make a move, look at Bacigalupo behind him. We can't see it from this angle, but he could take advantage of this if it goes wrong.
At this point, he's just focused on trying to close his gap with David Holland. Gap between them is only 0.2 of a second, and they just need a couple of corners or the next lap in order for Cranefoos to close this gap. I don't think there's too much of a threat, but of course we do see Holland taking the defensive line all the way out, and now he's switched back to the left side lane, but they now take it into the Big Ben, and we just see how Holland has effectively defended his own position along the main straight.
That's a perfect example of what we keep talking about, the difficulty in trying to pass here. Looking over that NinjaTrader logo on the rear wing, Holland is holding him at bay, while we've got an issue with Tyler Gore once again in Big Bend. Oh, and this looks like what you were talking about before, that entry being so tough here. Oh, jeez. He skittered all the way across the grass, and he looked so helpless trying to get the car wound up. Battle again for 3rd place, Holland and Cranefoos, but Cranefoos holds his ground around the outside. Still, they're going to be wheel to wheel through the left-hander. Can he get it done? Daniel finally completes the pass. I don't think David's going to take that one sitting down, though. He stays right with him, and he could get the chance back around to Big Ben on the next time through.
A brilliant move by these two drivers to make that move take place ever so safely. They come along the West Bend, and it's Holland going for a comeback move as they come down the downhill and onto St. Posey straight once again. Remember, we've got Lucas right behind them also, as we see Cranefoos now his turn to make the defensive move, and Holland's turn to go along the outside again to try to make a move work.
Holland not as aggressive as we've seen from Daniel, so he hangs back. I think we lost Sheldon Rosenbaum. I didn't quite see what the accident involved, but he's in pit lane. So we'll have to go back to that sometime later, unfortunately. And you talked about there was no threat from Lucas a couple laps ago. Well, that has changed completely now.
As we ride on board Lucas as they take the west bend at this point, you can see that the gap between them stands at 0.2 of a second. And yes, in fact, Lucas is it is kind of his turn to put his pressure upon David Holland.
Stays right within that slipstream, down into Big Bend. A little wide up there from Cranefoot, so you can see, but he diamonds off the corner well. We're only 7 minutes into this race, by the way, and a lot has already happened. But one driver that hasn't experienced a lot happening is Greg Seitz, in a reversal of roles compared to what we usually see. Instead of Holland streaking away, it's Greg Seitz who has got the measure of the field. It is 2 seconds now that the number 74 has over the nearest car. He's already coming up to traffic, though, which probably is the last thing he wants to see. Down with David McDonald, battling with Soroy, and Soroy's going to take it away with a smooth move down into Big Bend. So the twin of Mark McDonald, one of our major players in the GT4 series, finds himself demoted. And that is true as far as we've been told, informed that David is indeed the twin brother.
It's going to be for David McDonald to try to go for a comeback move as he's now relegated to P9. The gap between himself and Soroy sit at 4 to 0.5 of a second. They come up on the downhill corner, and this is going to be where they take advantage of a little bit of slipstream with each other, see if they're able to close the gap by a little bit. No defensive driving here, as a move isn't exactly imminent with such a huge gap at this point.
One thing that has been imminent for a few drivers is an early retirement. Oh, and Great Boost with an issue. Both Cranefoot and a Bear have had an off simultaneously, and I think they were completely separate problems. Or were they? Oh, no, I think there was some contact here. The watch into Big Bend here is going to move to the inside of a Bear. It's just a little bit of touch. And I wonder if that hurt his suspension enough that because he spins off afterwards. We don't see it on this replay. If we could get to Cranefoot here. So Daniel's gone down to 18th already. Here he is. We'll have to back it up just a little bit. Oh, here, no, actually, there it is right there. And he doesn't hit hard, thankfully. Well, there you see the results of it, Weihan. He's already had to come into the pits and let's see. Oh, yeah, this is way too early. That's going to make for a second stop for him, for sure.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate for him to kind of face himself with an incident. Yeah, well, he's gone out. He's having a little bit of trouble once again at this point, so I think it's just not going to play well with him as he tries to regain his confidence going on this race.
So this promotes Holland up to third, but we've also got a little bit of a fight here. To 12th place, Eduardo Gach, Dzube, and Thurman. In fact, a bit of a train. Looks like Raymond Day is involved as well. There's Gach in the red machine. That green and white, that is Dzube in the SRT Formula 3 car. Coming down the front stretch, not quite the exit that he wanted. Thurman is being caught by Day in the background, too. Day with a great run onto that front stretch, and he gets that down to within a tenth or two.
Because Eduardo Gach having a good time leading this four-way battle pack, starting from P12 all the way down to P16. Now the average gap that sits between them, we have gaps ranging from 7/10 to 1.5, 7/10 to 9/10 of a second. I'll go to Soroy and Faraday. Sorry, Joe.
Yeah, there was a pass between them. Soroy making a smooth move once again down into the inside. That's going to give him 6th place. Looks like we've even got a replay on this one. Once again, the spot is Big Bend. So we've not only had all our accidents, but all our passes as well. Yeah, looks like he backed out of that one. So as soon as he saw the writing on the wall, he gave it a little bit of a lift. Didn't really want to risk the car this early in the race. What I was saying before about the leaders is that they certainly seem to be spreading out a bit. Seitz is now up to 4 seconds ahead of Mitchell Green, who is held on to second. David Holland has not been able to threaten Mitchell for some time now. David was dealing with quite a bit of a fight instead before, as Tyler Zube seems to have gone off in Big Bend. Looks like he was still trying to chase Gok and fortunately went a little bit wide, came back on without hitting anything. 10th place, look at this one, close between Daniels and Richards. Just about half a second between them on the front stretch. We're going to ride over the shoulder of Christopher Richards. Ooh, wow, he closed quickly. You weren't kidding about that slipstream being powerful down the front stretch.
Yeah, I think it's all going to be quite smoothly because there will be areas where you get even more slipstream. Of course, with the proximity so close, you already have a little bit of consistent slipstream throughout the lap. They come upon the uphill corner. This is where they have to be extra careful, especially with slipstream upon this exit point, the crest of the hill, which they manage ever so perfectly. West Bend they come. And we've also got a lap traffic in front. You see, so early on in this race at Lime Rock Park, at a place like this, you already have lap traffic.
Here we go.
They move by Richards along the inside, and they go almost side by side as they're going to enter the Big Bend. Perfect move there, a move up to P10 by Christopher Richards.
All right, cracking into the top 10 now. He started in 17th, by the way, so Christopher Richards, definitely one of our hard chargers in this race. So is Alex Guyon from 19th to 9th, incredibly. Let's take a look at Guyon. Not a driver I expected to be climbing up quite this drastically, but the 808 has done it well. I mean, we haven't seen much in the way of action with him on screen, so I assume that it's been relatively calm from his perspective. Granted, he's unfortunately in a little bit of no man's land, about 8 seconds up to McDonald's, 2.5 seconds back to Richards, who we were watching before. A little bobble there for Guyon coming off a Big Bend. So let's now ride a little bit with David Holland here, Wei-Han. And I'm wondering if we could pull up the laps that have recently taken place between himself and Mitchell Green, because it doesn't look like it's huge gains, but the gap is definitely smaller than when we last looked.
Yeah, it is Holland trying to close on the gap with Green. Now we have a look at the lap comparison. We find that the gap has, well, it would appear that he has dropped back a little bit over the past 3 laps. Starting lap 18, you see a difference from 2000s to 900s and to about 2/10 of a second. But of course, each driver will bide their time at a track like this, and they will need some laps in order to kind of close up that gap. At this point, it is 29 minutes remaining. We have quite a number of laps down already. Gap between Holland and Green sit at 7/10. We move to the battle here on P5. It is Basigalupo versus Sirua.
And don't forget Cuero in that as well. The number 79 is the third car at the front of the trio. So this is going to get fascinating. They're coming up the lap traffic. Lauren Sebastian is in front of them. Hopefully won't play too much of a factor in it. He's got a ways before he is caught. It just depends on how much quicker per lap they are. Right now, they don't seem to be gaining drastically. 2 wheels off for Basigalupo through West Bend. That actually slows him up quite a bit, because here comes Soroy. Oh, and a late move, almost shoving him into the grass. Eventually, he slows, and now he fully covers off the inside, but I have a feeling that the number 19 was not too keen on that move. All right, you're in the steward's seat here, Wei-Han. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, we have a look from up top. We do get a better perspective at this point as we see how the cars interact with one another. So there's a Basigalupo in front and Sierra behind as they come upon the downhill corner, very close with each other. And I think as Basigalupo went for defensive, so did Sierra as you know they're trying to take the most advantage of the space they have. Of course, both drivers did not anticipate how close this would play out, but it did play out.
Side by side as we come back live, Soroy once again forced to the outside by Bacigalupo and can't get it done. This is causing them both to fall back from Puerto up ahead. He's now got about a second gap, so not good news for him. And we just had a change of position between Day and Gok. I think that was for 10th. It looks like Raymond Day got that spot away. Let's take a look at how this one happened. This was down into Big Bend. And no defense there. Doc just not too worried about his race, so he held on a little bit around the outside of the first corner and eventually gave it up. Let's go back to David Holland and Mitchell Green. That gap is now gone from 0.8 of a second to 0.4. It was as low as 0.2 here during that replay. And Holland falling off in the Rock Park. Maybe he's quicker in a straight line here.
Yeah, Holland has managed to close his gap with Green, and they are now down to 0.4 of a second. A little bit of a defensive line, you know, when you can sense that the car behind you is close enough, usually you start to make all the defensive moves work. They come upon the big bend, and this is where Holland would appear to go even closer up to the rear end of Mitchell Green. They come upon the left and right hander, of course, this being the only left-hander on this Lime Rock Classic layout, which is always so interesting. They come upon these the S's here as they prepare for the entry into the uphill.
This has got to be nerve-wracking for Mitchell, knowing that he's got the multi-time champion right behind him, and he's got this traffic in front that they're barely going to get to the inside of. David Hebert letting them through. Now it's going to go side by side. Holland, the long way around. Can he outbrake him to manage to chop him off? He does, and he gets through. David Holland up to second place after starting this race in 5th.
Oh, a brilliant move by Holland for the overtaking move to work. He goes up to P2, and he's going to be all ready to try to now being his turn to defend himself from Green.
We saw that Gok had gotten overtaken by Day. Well, he's already been overtaken by Hermer, who is now through. And that happened before we could even get the cameras to him. Yeah, it looks like... whoa, this is worth a replay. This didn't happen in the first bend. It happened in the last one in the diving turn. It was started off by that mistake right there. And he saw a weakness. He decided to pounce. Hermer is not going to ask for it twice, and he's going to push his way through. Almost a halfway now at this point, Wei-Han. And I'm trying to see, do we have anybody who has taken a scheduled stop yet? A little bit of a battle for 14th, though.
Yeah, quite a big train at this point. Well, look, the gap between them would sit around 2 to 3/10 of a second, so it is quite a tight one. They are approaching the staging ground for any potential moves to take place right after this. Along the inside go the two teammates. This is going to be so close as they go for 2 wide, nearly 3 wide. But of course, that is one, the red one going along the inside line to defend his inside position as they go into the big bend. This is so close as it is a shuffle of positions between these 3 cars.
Richards manages to get it away from Brett Thurman. That was for position for 15th, but not able to get by to Zube, who's still right there in front of him. He's sandwiched between the SRT cars. Can he do anything with it? And I think we're getting a scheduled stop for Stephen Verity, one of our top 10 drivers. So the number 4 looking for his stall. He was up to, we'll say, 6th place before. Let's see, does he take tires? We're watching. No, just fuel. No tires for the number 4. He's back out and running. He's going to return in 19th, but he is going to be in a little bit of traffic now. Not good news, and not really the development that Verity wanted. We were watching that battle for 12th before. Daniels ahead of Dezube, ahead of Richards. This is continuing on. Daniels might be under threat here. Oh, this is not looking good. Weihan, I think Dezube's got the run.
It would appear to have the run. He takes the inside and cuts the move and makes it work. And he goes up and takes P12 right from Joshua Daniels, just like that.
Boy, the way that Daniels backed out of it so early, I thought that Dezube was going to overshoot the corner. Thankfully, he was spot on in his brake marker. That's going to get him into 12th. Now, they do have Sam Hermer in front of them. And Sam, I believe, started from pit lane, I think. Let me double check on that. Yeah, he had to serve a penalty and started from pit lane. So him being up in 10th position is kind of phenomenal, if I'm honest. Watch from on board, looking over his left shoulder. This is Day. This is for position directly in front of him. He started this race in 14th. Hermer should have started in 3rd with his qualifying. So hence why he has been able to weave his way through the field so quickly. Also worth noting, we only have 18 cars left on the lead lap, and we've just passed that halfway point.
Is this going to be Hermer making a move down along the inside against Day? Unfortunately, not close enough for the overtaking move to work into the big bend. So he is going to require a few more corners to set himself up and make the move work again. Of course, being Live Rock Park, lap traffic is among the challenges that all the cars along on the lead lap will have to face at some point in the race. Of course, it does happen earlier than usual when you start to face lap traffic. A little bit unstable goes Day as he went upon the uphill corner.
I'm keeping half an eye on this and half an eye on Bacigalupo and Savoy because they've been close to lead. This is where we might get a pass between these two. Down to the inside, Day defends, Hermer attacks. We saw this work for Holland before, and it's gonna work for Hermer as well. Up to P9, going the long way around.
It's just amazing the kind of overtaking lines, the racing lines that you do have at the Big Bend. You know, being a wider entry, that is some moves that people would like to use.
So Roy's got the inside. This is what he's been working on, getting away from Bacigalupo for a long time. Remember, he almost got pushed into the grass earlier. Is this going to finally be the vengeance that he wants? Yes, it is. David Soroy up to the top 5 with that move.
A great move by Soroy against Bacigalupo, and at this point, I think with the corners to come, you know, the gap between them currently sits at 3/10, and they come upon the uphill.
So can David now chase down Mauricio Cuero? He's the next one up there. Oh, why is he going way inside? Oh, he's going to pit. He was motioning that he is coming into pit lane. What a nice move from the 19 to make sure and communicate that. Oh, and Holland is in. Second place driver is pitting. Wonder what kind of gap he had. I didn't quite get to see what his gap was to our leader for the stop, and that is very, very fast. Meanwhile, oh, and Soroy has got a long stop here. Did he speed in pit lane? What is going on? The other possibility is this might be a stop and go penalty for too many incidents. Meanwhile, our leader is in. Holland is our highest pitter with that incredibly fast stop. Normally I would talk about him jumping him, but I don't see how David could get to the end. Seitz takes tires. Holland has got his speed up. He's coming down the front stretch right now. Seitz is back out, but Seitz is clear. Holland gained a little bit of time. It's down to 2.7, and he can see his longtime rival. Multiple run-ins last time between these two, making contact, and every single time it went sour for Greg Seitz in the number 74. Green, who was in third, now pits, so he's going to hand the lead back to Greg Seitz. Seitz dealing with a little bit of traffic. Green, yep, there he goes. He's on by. Green is through, and Holland is in front of him, so Green returns in third, ahead of Cuero. And that should be everybody who's stopped. Josh Daniels has relinquished his higher position that he's gotten from going long, and I believe David Hebert is the only other one, but he is laps down. Daniels being our last pitter. Let's quickly run down how things have shaped up after the pit stops now, because that changed the complexion with a variety of pit stops times for our drivers. Seitz with an average stop of about 7 seconds. Nothing really dramatic, just noticing that he took tires, which could come into play. Oh, and ahead of him, there's a big wreck. In fact, he's having to slow up a lot trying to pick his way through. This has cost him all his time, and there is Holland right up with him. That was Josh Daniels, actually. Daniels involved with, who was that? Well, he made contact with Sheldon Rosenbaum as they went 3 wide with Duprat to his outside. Meanwhile, let's stay on this battle. Holland has cut it down now. Can he get around him? Seitz has got to be asking when can he catch a break. He built a monstrous gap. The only thing that he's got going for him is fresher tires. David Holland hunting him down the front stretch. Going to be forced all the way to the outside as he almost squeezes him off into the grass, side by side, into turn 1, and he's going to be denied this time through, but this battle is not over.
It's fantastic move by Seitz. He manages to hold on just enough to defend his race leader. Of course, it was unfortunate that he had to face that incident, that point, which kind of ruined whatever momentum he had and advantage he had ahead of everyone on the grid. You know, suddenly moving from having such a large advantage ahead of everyone earlier on in the race to right now having the second place right breathing down your neck right behind you. This is a big change that Seitz is trying to grapple with at this point.
Wei-Han, can you go and check for me to see if Holland went and got tires? Because I'll keep an eye on this battle. I don't think he did with how quick his pit stop was. But like I said before,
his pit time was 4.9 seconds, so most likely no tires taken. Perhaps just
okay. The ride on board. That's, like I said, that's the only saving grace I think that Greg Seitz really has right now. And this lap traffic is really starting to become a headache. That was David Hebert, who ducked out of the way at the last second. Watch from the helicam. Oh my gosh. Thought he was clear, and then suddenly there's the leaders. So at least they got through that. Who is up next? Sebastian Prue needs to be lapped now. Into the 15th position, the number 99 car ahead of them. Now this is paying credence to the fact that Seitz took tires while Holland didn't, because look at him gap him once they've gotten into clear air here, Wei-Han.
Yeah, well, look, Prue does have a 6-second advantage ahead of Joshua Daniels, but I would imagine that the cars behind him are, or rather, he is currently a lapped car, and he is coming under quite a bit of pressure from Seitz who wants to make it work. So, will we see that? Will we see this being an impedance to Seitz' momentum as he tries to make his way, or tries to sit behind this lap traffic? You know, sometimes with lap traffic ahead of you, you can take advantage of a little bit of slipstream, but of course, The driver being smart, doing the blue flag move to allow the race leader sides through.
So that denies David Holland a chance to try and close him in. I know we've been focusing on this a lot, but this is for the lead with 13 minutes left to go here in round 3 of the PRL GTE or PRL Formula 3 series. Getting my PRL series mixed up. About 0.7 of a second from Seitz back to Holland. And if Seitz can do it, this is the first time in a while that he'll have beaten David on track. So not only would this be important points-wise, but psychologically, this is almost critical for Greg to try and manage to get himself a bit of a boost. Down
Christopher Richards in P10. Sorry, Joe.
No, go ahead. You got it.
Yeah, Richards in P10, and he is trying to fend himself off against Day, who is in 11th. We ride on board Day from this cockpit camera. Very good perspective we have here as he takes his line and tries to get his slipstream from Christopher Richards.
I love this helmet cam that Dougie's been giving us lately. Puts it right within the driver's perspective here. You can see how low they are in the car. And he's getting awful close to the back of Richards. He isn't quite able to do anything yet, but this is where he wants that run. Down into Big Bend, slipstream allowing him to get to the insides. Richards not going to cover it off. He lets him through. So they come now out of that corner. Behind them, looks like Dzube changed positions with Gok once again. Those two have been back and forth quite a bit. Looks like another swapping of places on the front stretch with the slipstream between them. We're not missing anything up at the front. Seitz has dropped Holland by quite a bit now. It's about 1.5 seconds. You know, I almost wonder, Wei-Han, if that short stop was simply because maybe Holland was thinking if I can get that track position, I can fend him off for the rest of the race.
Yeah, well, I think it's all about weighing the pros and cons to your ability to defend your position. And if you are able to defend your position, you can get by with not exactly having the freshest of tires. But of course, with better tires, you do have the advantage of better consistent pace throughout the laps. So of course, David Holland, he was trying to play that betting game, and it would appear to have played slightly in his favor, although he currently only sits in P2.
We saw that change for positions. That was Dzube once again getting by Gok for 12th. And up at the top of your screen, our eagle-eyed viewers may have noticed Seitz set another fastest lap of anyone out there. Those tires really are coming to the fore. And he's got now 1.8 seconds over David Holland, who is slipping. We're down to 13 cars left on the lead lap. On board with Seitz. That is Sheldon Rosenbaum just up ahead.
I was just running through what might be in Seitz' mind, because he does have some pressure from P2 right behind him. Although the gap is still 1.9 seconds, he makes use of a little bit of slipstream from Rosenbaum, but then darts back again to make that lapping overtaking move work. So now he does have a bit of playing in his favor. He does have Rosenbaum sandwiched between himself and P2, so that could stay on for just a few moments, which could solidify his race lead for just a little bit longer, buying himself some time as he tries to find the perfect route to make this work for the remainder of this race.
And interesting to note, we were watching this fight before. Gok and Dzube are the ones right in front of him now. So even though they are separated a bit, this is sort of a battle for position. I hope that Eduardo won't hold him up too much once he sees he's coming. He just won't want to lose as much time himself because he's trying to stay up with Dzube as they enter back into Big Bend. He's not going to pull over for him here, and now is where it gets twisty.
So I think Seitz is not far behind from them at all. And I think in just a few moments they will kind of face a little bit of dilemma, especially for Gok. whether or not to allow the leader pass that kind of put his worries away, or keep that up and continue his battle with the Zube. Of course, they're coming upon Sam Posey straight, so this means that there should be enough space for an overtaking move to work by Greg Seitz. Of course, perfectly does Greg Seitz. He comes along the inside and makes the lapping maneuver work for him.
And he is through once again, putting a buffer between himself and Holland. Gach now splits the pair of first and second place. Holland, though, is not really a threat. It's now 2 seconds behind that he has lost to Greg Seitz. Remember, he was within a tenth or two and even attacking at one point, wheel to wheel, up and over the hill. A little bit of a scary moment there over the crest.
Yeah, with the crest in place, it is a little bit difficult to look ahead of you, which is always important to do so as you try to maneuver yourself against traffic. I think Seitz has for himself kind of a good buffer of a few cars, just one car behind him at this point still. His gap ahead of Holland is 1.2 to 1.3 seconds, so it might increase as Holland tries to find his own way across Rosenbaum.
Let's go to 2 hard chargers for 8th place, Gaon and Hermer. Gaon coming up from 19th, now riding in 8th. He's trying to hold on to it in these last few moments as he's got Sam Hermer chasing him down and actually looking to the inside. Too late to defend from that one. So Sam Hermer going from dead last on the field, starting from pit lane, to getting himself into P8 with a 5-second run up to Verity. I don't think he's going to be able to do much more damage than that. Oh, we've got a car on the side of the track, Sebastian Prue, in a very bad spot, and he's going to get it going, thankfully, before the leaders get there. That was a bit scary, though, because he was right in the firing line just before the entry to diving turn. So this is going to be out of West Bend. Watch the left side tires. We touched the grass on entry, it looks like. Good job keeping it from hitting the wall and any other cars and just parking it until he had the full clear. It lost him a lot of spots, sadly, but it kept his car and everybody else's car intact. Looks like we got a battle for 18th too, or for 17th rather, because Prue has Legault catching up, and he's going to look to the inside. Olivier with a good run down at a big bend. Smoothly through into the position, but he's got to hold it together as they almost touch wheels into the corner. I don't think Prue's done with him quite yet. He comes back at him, and somehow, with it looking like that position was lost, he regains it and gets himself into 17th once again.
Right on board Legault as he goes along the uphill, and we get a good perspective once again of his potential moves against Sebastian Prue. Come upon the downhill. Is this going to be a slipstream move? Is this going to be something that I'm so sorry if I butcher your name. Legault will make it work. Of course, he goes along the inside. He makes the overtaking move work, or rather, Prue makes the overtaking move work, but this is going to be a comeback as they try to go back and forth as they come upon the left and right-handers.
Considering Olivier is hailing from Club Canada, he's going to get to the inside here, up into the uphill, and that's a very hard place to pass. He noses and he eventually backs out. I was going to say, I'm pretty sure it's Legault, because that would be the French way of saying that last name. So, oh no! And that West Bend once again bites Sebastian Prue. This time, though, he is not able to come away with it, and he is going to DNF. Boy, that happened fast.
It was just so unfortunate for him. Look, if we have a look at the replay, it was just a matter of the tank slapper kind of making him unstable as he exited the West Bend, and that was just enough to send him right into the wall and end his night of racing. Especially so with 4 minutes to go, I think it must be so disappointing for him to have to end it at this point.
Now, looking at Greg Seitz, he's not out of the woods quite yet, because he must have been held up by lap traffic like this. This is Christopher Richards, who he's trying to find his way around. It's gone from 2 seconds now down to 0.8. Oh, he's not liking this at all. This gap continues to decrease and decrease as David Holland starts to threaten once again, being extra careful with this lap traffic. Richards not fighting anybody. Now he's going to let him through. This puts Christopher a lap down, even though he's in 11th. And actually great timing, because this will indeed split him from Holland. Now, will Holland be more aggressive in trying to get by him?
So a little bit of a buffer to Sykes' advantage. So we have a look at if or not Holland will make an overtaking move work here. They come up on the uphill. And I think he would require a couple more corners for this to work.
Yeah, he's doing about the same thing that Greg is. Just waiting for right here on the front stretch. He knows he can make it clean, not hold either of them up. He is through, and it's holding at 0.8 of a second. So he didn't lose as much as Greg Seitz did in that exchange. Interesting stuff. 2.5 minutes left to go. I believe we should be 2 to go at the line.
I think this battle will go down the line because with such little time left, or rather so close to the end of the race, drivers will put in all that they can in order to make the move work. This is all or nothing for David Holland, as he would try to take the race lead away from Greg Seitz, but Greg is also up there. He has the advantage of fresher tires, and he is going to use that to his advantage as he tries to defend his race lead.
They seem to have overestimated. It actually looks like it's 3 to go that time at the line, judging by the clock. And, well, the good news for Holland is he doesn't need to worry too much, because 10.7 seconds back to Mitchell Green. After he disposed of that number 27, he did not look back. Problem is, in his looking forward, he's not been able to do much with the 74. And his time is running out. He's got to get much closer to him to try and make an attack and take them away. For those wondering what this does for the championship, it actually doesn't allow Seitz to overtake Holland for first in the points. It's only going to narrow that gap down to roughly about 9 markers, as we won't be able to know the bonus points until this race is over. And that could change it, could make it better, could make it worse for Seitz. It all depends. But we're going to get the white flag next time by, and Greg is now coming up on Raymond Day. And if I'm seeing correctly, is Day a teammate to Holland? I think he is indeed one of his teammates. Now, I don't like to say that there's nefarious tactics going on, but I can't imagine, and Day is going to be extra polite here. He's not going to hold up either of them. There we go. That puts that conspiracy theory to rest. I wasn't sure if he was going to try and hold up Greg Seitz or not. White flag is out with 20 seconds to go. I was just going to say, I would have not have thought that Holland would be this close at this point in the race with a 5th place qualifying. But it's not the qualifying that matters. The bonus, well, that's just for a bonus point for pole. It is the finishing order that gets you the most points. And for Greg Seitz, he's going to get the most finishing points of anybody, because he is going to be the winner here today at Lime Rock Park. The first in a while for Greg. Second to Holland. Green coming around with not that big of a gap as well to Cuerto, but managing a podium. Bacigalupo going to manage to get a 5th place. And this is ending very, very fast with so few cars in the lead lap. Only 9 left on the lead lap in the end. Verity Hermer guy on the last ones through. So with that, we're going to take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. We're going to come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. Stick around, because on screen you're going to see all the upcoming racing here on GSRC. Welcome to Lime Rock Park. We just saw round 3 in the PRL Formula 3 series. And in the end, Greg Seitz finally got that victory he's been working so hard for a while. And it was over. David Holland, despite a late charge and despite a short pit stop for David, he was about half a second back at the line. Counts for podium points. Mauricio Cuero with a 4th place, racking up consistent finishes this season. He's a good one to watch out for. Lucas Bacigalupo took a top 5 with David McDonald finishing in 6th, climbing up from 10th place. A nice run there for David. Stephen Verity in 7th with Samuel Hermer in 8th, and then Alex Guyon, the last driver on the lead lap, was 9th. Raymond Day was your 10th place finisher. And then we've got Christopher Richards in 11th with Eduardo Gach in 12th. Tyler DeZube finishing P13 today, and Don Lee in 14th position. David Soroy with a 15th place finish. Josh Daniels in 16th, and Olivier Legault, who we watched his fight late on 17th. Owen McLaughlin was 2 laps down in 18th position. Then you get into drivers with major problems. David Hebert in 19th, and Sebastian Prue, who was our first DNF of the day. The rest of the drivers on down were either DNFs or had to come in and went many, many laps down. Not so for Greg Seitz, who was our winner. Greg, it looked like in the qualifying you had the edge over Holland, and it looked like a good edge. But then in the race, talk to us about what's going through your mind when the pit stops finished and suddenly you see the gap back to Holland.
Yeah, I really wasn't worried at that point. I knew he was likely to not take tires, and I had enough of a gap that I could take tires, which, I wanted to make sure. But then obviously later in the race, there was a big pile up into third one, and the whole gap evaporated. So, at that point, there was just tons of traffic to work my way through. So every time I would pull some kind of a gap on them, I would encounter traffic. Some guys were great getting out of the way, others not so much.
Yeah, sometimes that happens. Well, you said you had confidence too once you knew how the pit stops would go, and they did. Does the same extend to your defensive skills? Because we talked a lot about how track position is so important here, and well, you had it in that battle. So, did you feel confident you could keep him behind?
Yeah, I did, because number one, I had, it's tough to pass. You can get it done, but it's tough to pass around the outside of turn one. He really had that one shot at me after the incident in turn one on the previous lap, so that got him close enough. But I had kind of utmost confidence in my tires at that point, so I pushed it deep into the turn, and I really didn't think he would get me there. And even if he had attacked it later on, I'm pretty sure I could have held him off. So, again, it was taking the tires. In hindsight, if I hadn't taken the tires, I wouldn't have been, held up by that turn one incident, and I probably would have had a 5 or 6 second gap. But, it all worked out in the end. It was probably made for a much more interesting race anyway.
It certainly raised our voices, I can tell you that. Do you consider Lime Rock a specialty track for you? Is this one where you think you tend to be strong? Because I did not expect this performance from you today, but it was a pleasant surprise.
I don't know if it's particularly strong. I mean, it has been. It's proven that it has been this week in the officials. I've done really well. I've never been here in this car other than the week 13 fun stuff. But when I was racing Skippy, we visited here obviously quite often. So maybe that gave me an edge. I'm not sure. But yeah, our whole team did just fantastic. So I think we really dialed in our setup. That was probably part of the difference too.
Certainly looked like you had it under control. Well, congratulations. Before we let you go, anyone you want to thank?
Yeah, I want to thank you guys, obviously, for doing a great job broadcasting, and PRL for putting on the league, and then of course my team, who I'm super happy with. We, just all around great job, and we had a lot of fun this week practicing.
Awesome. That was Greg Seitz, your winner here today for round 3. Up next, though, Wayhan has caught up with David Holland.
Hi, David. Congratulations on coming home P2 in the F3 series tonight. Now, we did notice that at one point in time during the pit stops, you might have gone for the option of not taking tires. And I think subsequently, what that might have led to was that you were in fact stuck behind sides, and it would appear that it was a little bit challenging for you to go for the overtaking. move for the race lead. Now, could you take us through the sequence of events and how, and if you could share with us more about that moment?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey guys, first off, just want to say, hope you guys are staying safe and staying healthy. Huge congrats to Greg as well. He ran a great race, but yeah, didn't get the qualifying effort we were hoping for, so put us back quite a bit there at the start. Also, our setup, we knew it was kind of a long setup. We knew it was going to come in really late into the race. Not quite that late, but it definitely started coming in there. And by that time, Greg had pulled out, like you said, 4 or 5 seconds. And then when it came time to pit stops, I pit a little bit early just because I was coming up on lap traffic, figured that might save me the time that Greg had to spend getting around them. And then, yeah, it was basically a Hail Mary at that point to not go for tires, which here, it's so tough on the left side tires with all the right-hand turns. So I wasn't quite sure how it was going to work out, and it was definitely getting really sketchy towards the end, but I was pushing and giving it everything I had. So Greg definitely earned it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, would appear that I think the lap traffic did kind of affect the race pace of various drivers, because it's always a challenge to have to balance between making the move work and not jeopardizing everyone's race safety. Now, look, we head to Imola next week. So what are your thoughts as we head to a track like that? Understanding that it is a place where you can stretch your legs a little bit further, and also about the possibility that the track like Imola is more suited to open wheel cars.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's just say I'm glad we're done with these first 3 weeks here. These have been tough tracks altogether, especially this week. So, yeah, really looking forward to that. More of a GP style track. Should be a lot of fun. It's one that we haven't raced in a while, so I'm looking forward to it.
Gotcha. Anyone you'd like to give a shout out to before this interview comes to a close?
Yeah, of course, need to thank the team, Vantage Esports, as always, put in quite a bit of time trying to get our setup put together for this week. Got to thank the sponsors, NinjaTrader and ButtKicker, also PRL for organizing this great league, and you guys at GSRC for the broadcast. It's always awesome work, guys. Appreciate it.
That was our second place finisher, David Holland. And then up next, a real quick interview with our third place finisher, Mitchell Green, who held second for quite some time. It wasn't until well into the race, Mitchell, as we try to pull him in here. Looks like we jumped the gun a little bit on talking to him. There we go. Now we've got Mitchell in with us. Mitchell, you held second place for a good chunk of this race, and then suddenly you had David Holland behind you. Does it enter into your mind when racing against guys like David at all, their reputation, or are you able to block that stuff out?
No, it's in the back of your mind the entire time.
I can't imagine. I know I would not be able to withstand the pressure myself. After that, it seemed like he started to gap you a little bit, and well, he was kind of gone. So, were you content to just ride in third for the rest of the race? Did you feel good about at least solidifying a podium?
Absolutely. Greg and David, they're on a whole nother level themselves. So I know it's a battle really between them two. So my strategy was to kind of give Greg as much time as he could to keep the gap and hold him off as long as I could. But unfortunately, I got caught up with some lap traffic, and David got by a little sooner than I had hoped. But all in all, I think I did a good job holding him off for as long as I could.
So some team tactics we didn't quite catch happening out on track. Wayhan was talking to David a little bit ago about Imola coming up. But what about you? Are you looking forward to Imola? That seems to be, like this one, a bit of a divisive track at times.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to a longer lap. There's more to focus on. It's going to be harder to set the car up for it, but definitely looking forward to that legendary circuit.
Well, again, thanks for coming and talking to us. Apologies, this one had to be a little quick, but we got to get Sean on a plane here in a minute. So congratulations on third, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you more this season.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
That was Mitchell Green taking home third today. And a big thank you to some of our sponsors in this series before we close things out. First off, starting with NinjaTrader. Make sure and check them out at ninjatrader.com if you want to see what they can do for you. And also to the ButtKicker. You can find them at thebutkicker.com if you want to see if they've got anything for your sim rig. Also, thanks to iRacing for putting us on IESN for another season here for the Formula 3 series. And thanks go out to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. And thanks to the team today, Wayhan, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. Also, check out our social media. Our Twitter is at GSR Channel, Facebook is Global SimRacing Channel, and Instagram is GSRC_Graham. Off to Italy for the next round at Imola. That'll be Thursday, April 9th at 9 p.m. Eastern. But we have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar, because until next time, race clean, race hard, see you on the track.